notified our officers in a department-wide email thread to do extra patrols, and even cited the reason the extra patrols were requested based on Mr. Hamilton's photographs that he provided, one of those being a blockage of a stop sign, and the other being vehicles left in the area beyond 72 hours. I think our community service officer was the first to contact him, have a discussion with the, not him per se, but the owner of the vehicles. And I believe in that conversation, she cited the 72-hour violation situation. I've had a sergeant and other officers regularly drive by and they have not found where those vehicles were left for 72 hours in the exact same spot. I think the challenge here is if they're moved ever so slightly, they fall out of that 72-hour violation. I think one of the other challenges is the tenant in the neighborhood has multiple vehicles and that are moved around on a regular basis. So the last conversation I had with him, I definitely explained the situation with 72-hour. We would absolutely have no problem going out there and marking it. The problem is they've been moved, and that's all it requires. I've even gone out to check the stop sign situation, and the vehicle in question that was blocking it did not belong to the owner of the said vehicles we're discussing, but a different motorhome, if you will. That certainly would have been an obstruction, but it was moved. But the vehicles I found did not reach the distance that's required in a blocking situation, and they weren't blocking the stop sign. And so we continue to do extra patrol. I certainly understand Mr. Hamilton's concern, but we had a very good conversation about it, and we will continue to do enforcement efforts in regards to that.
And Madam Chair, I don't think there's any further follow-up other than to continue to monitor the situation. I just want to say that from a staff perspective, responded very quickly, less than, almost immediately to his email concerns, followed up with the appropriate visits to the site to check, and then the ongoing enforcement by the police department.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, did you have anything to add or any questions?
Well, just one thing, this 72-hour parking situation and people just moving it a couple of feet forward is a game that we've been playing in this town ever since I can remember. And it just frustrates me and other people. Chief, I'm wondering, with no priority and with the city manager's permission, if possible over the next month or two, if you could just come back with some suggestions on how we can tighten that up. I'm sure we're not the only city that has an ordinance like this, but there must be some way of mandating that it be moved 25 yards or whatever the case may be in order for it to be considered moved. So I would appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure though, under the current economic conditions and in light of the EDB report that we're going to receive later, if, we really want to go a punitive approach though. I mean, I think that just like after the 2017 fires and, the urgency ordinances that we passed regarding RVs and the like, I can imagine that a lot of folks who used to rent commercial space just can't justify it any longer. And I think that we're going to have to, I'd also like to see us do, we certainly should stay abreast of what our rights are, what our abilities are, to enforce and maintain, a good quality of life. But I also think that if we can improve communication between neighbors and improve communication with folks who are calling this in and say this is a really difficult time for business owners, and we all just need to do what we can to help each other and work together. So if we can find kind of a more community-based communication solution or resolution to these sorts of things, I would like to pursue that as well. So we can bring this back and talk a little bit more about it and on it as a regular agenda item. That would be great. Any other comments or questions? Well, with that, we'll move on to public comment, and members of the public may comment on any matter that is not on today's agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public may comment on items on the agenda. When the subcommittee considers that item, to make a public comment, use the raise hand icon on your smart device or desktop computer, or dial *9 if you are just using your telephone. If anybody out there still has a telephone. Irene, do we see anybody with their hand raised today?
No hands are raised, Chair.
Okay. Well, with that, there is a grace period considering that we're all trying to help each other out here. So if you need to raise your hand at some point, please let us know. But with that, we'll move on to item 4 and approval of the minutes. Mr. Mayor, had you had a chance to review the minutes? They looked pretty good to me.
Me too. And yes, I'd like to move for approval, please.
All right. And so I would agree. We can approve those. And I just want to compliment Irene on the minutes format. I think that I'm getting used to it, and it is much more effective and readable. So thank you for making that improvement. I think it's really helping us kind of, gather what actually happened in the meeting and what the action that was taking, instead of having to wade through the word by word. So I appreciate that. With that, we'll move on to item 5, current items, and item A, contract for scanning of building documents. Who would like to take on this fascinating subject?
Madam Chair, I can take this one.
Are you fighting over it, or are the two of you guys fighting over
I
it?
was just gonna introduce, I was gonna give background and then I was gonna put,
It's a good thing we don't have to arm wrestle for this one.
but
It beat me.
just background, as this subcommittee knows, and council approved, is an agreement with OpenGov to, really bring City Hall into a virtual environment. And as part of that effort, we received quite a bit of Public Record Act requests, particularly for building permit data, whether it's realtors, whether it's homeowners, builders or contractors. And part of their work, OpenGov, is to bring applicable records into that program and have available for citizens and residents. So what Kevin did is work with some vendors to get a scope of work to scan our building records. And part of that had a kind of a twofold purpose. One was to be able to provide those electronically, but also with the elimination of our trailer building where we housed a lot of these records, we're currently seeking a solution to where to store them. And this idea came about because rather than paying, say, an ongoing lease payment for a storage container that might again sit outside City Hall, we could look at kind of a one-time expense of scanning building documents and having those be put into an electronic format. So that's the background. And Kevin has been doing all the legwork on looking at getting a scope of work from reputable firms to do this work. And so, Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks. That's kind of it. I guess the good news is the timing is good because all the records are in boxes. And also Irene's been helping a lot with this too. Just she's our record keeper. But all the records are in the boxes at the courtyard, and the plan would be to have the company come take those, scan them, bring them back, and then they will be permanently housed in our new Butler building that's being constructed. As David said, we do get a lot of requests for these records. The current situation is really bad with COVID, having to drive up there and go through boxes that are on pallets. But even in normal times, we have to go trailer, look for the file. And so this would just be a really boost for our customer service. Someone can just go in there, look up their address, see the permit history. So it's really going to be great. We talked to two companies. One company actually came out, looked in what was in those. He looked through a few of those. That's the one we're recommending. The other company we talked to on the phone, but they didn't really follow up, so that really wasn't a good sign. So really, the bid is between 25 and 35,000, and there's a lot of leeway there only because they can't really determine what is in the boxes. If they open several boxes and there's large plans in there, those cost more to scan versus the small ones. So he looked through about 3 or 4 boxes, got a feel for it, and we got the quote for 25 to 35. So that would be, I mean, I guess I would count on it being 35, and then if it comes in less, then we'd be a little bit ahead. This is so in summary, it really is going to help our customer service. It's going to help save staff time, and it's going to be just a great tool for everyone in the community to really use. And so if there's support, I will put together a budget amendment and bring that forward in January. Irene, I don't know if you wanted to add anything about this, but that's pretty much it.
I think you summed it up perfectly. And the best part is that we're just continuing to increase the transparency and giving people the tools to be able to find the information when they want it.
I had a couple of questions, Gus, but did you have anything?
Well, I did too, but you go first this time.
Okay, I'm just wondering, what the current practice is now. Are we still, just producing paper plan after paper plan, or is there like a cutoff date? What's the
Well,
stat?
I forgot to add that what a lot of cities do is applicants need to bring it in on a flash drive, or they get charged a scanning fee. So going forward,
Okay.
that will be the practice. And I am working on
So we're not doing that yet, but that's how we would then
right.
transition our practices.
Yeah, currently it's still paper. We can, we're going to get the word out that we want it on a flash drive or some other electronic format. Otherwise, there'll be a fee. I am working with Coastland to update the fee and hopefully bring our building permit fee.
Mhm.
Along with that will be a small charge for electronic record keeping tagged onto each building permit, which will help pay for OpenGov as we go forward. I think I've mentioned that before, but also we'll establish a scanning fee at that point if they don't provide it electronically, and we'll have to get a contract or figure out a way to make that as easy as possible. But yeah, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, it is all paper at this point.
Okay, so when so there isn't even like we stopped doing paper in 2010 or something like that. We're still doing paper. We're still spinning out paper. Okay. And then kind of my follow-up question is just, you mentioned that there are a lot of public record okay, I can't even say the word, Public Record Act requests. And so how many do you get, and what's the kind of the general nature? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, as David kind of said, it's a realtor or someone wanting to buy a house and say, oh, there's a new kitchen here. Did they get a permit to actually do that? So those are pretty frequent. I would, they come and go, but as houses sell, like a good realtor will pull the permit history and see what was done, if something was done without a permit. So to estimate, there's at least a few a month, but I think when we were open, it seemed like there were more of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because right now it's like I said, it's very cumbersome, and I've done it a few times already where if somebody wants it, I have to go up, go through the boxes on the pallets. But these are unusual times, obviously.
Right. Well, whether it's on the pallet or whether it was in that, whether it was in the trailer. Yeah, I'm just kind of like doing rough math in my head on, your hourly rate and you digging through boxes looking for something, and how much that costs us.
and Rafael does a lot of them, and Letty would do it on occasion too. So it wasn't always me, but
yeah,
sometimes it is if I'm the only one around. So
okay, now that kind of answers that. It paints a picture of what we're dealing with. So yeah, Gus, did you have anything?
Well, just, and excuse me if I didn't catch this, if you mentioned it, Kevin, but how far back are we going to go scanning records?
Hmm.
It's all of them. So some of
What?
those are back to, I think,
1886?
this, well, I don't,
Maybe not that
long,
far.
yeah, long ago, I don't think people really were required to get building permits, but there's definitely stuff from the 60s in there. I've seen that,
Okay.
maybe late 50s.
So as much as we have, basically.
Yeah, everything we have. It's 100 bankers boxes.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm sure there'll be a, and this is probably an Irene question, there'll probably still be a retention for those paper items for a few months or a year after we get it scanned to make sure everything was done right, or how do we do that? Or don't we?
Mayor, or, go ahead, Irene.
No, I was just going to say that, yes, that's correct. So for most of the records, there actually will continue to be permanent. I'm not saying 100% of them, but a large majority. But with scanning them in, like Chair Bagby was saying, it really saves staff time because a
Sure.
lot of requests that come in think that we can just search our Laserfish really quick and get it to them. And unfortunately, it's like, no, we actually have to drive to where they're stored and then figure out, do we have to climb up somewhere? Or do we need a forklift to get to them and so forth? So with having them scanned in and having access to them ourselves, then we can kind of basically tuck them away and still meet the permanent requirements while also having them scanned in and the flexibility to check them out or receive them and
Gotcha.
just keep maintenance on them.
And just one more quick question. So when we have OpenGov in place, people will be able to go search through those files on their own?
Yeah, through the web portal.
Yeah, okay. So they'll be able to go get them on their own.
Yes.
Kind
And
of
then as I
a follow-up question to that, to Gus's question is, who is going to be responsible for doing the tagging and the entry? Is that the company that's doing the scanning, or is that something that, or will we have an opportunity to add tags? And
I forgot to mention the company that we're considering knows OpenGov, and they actually know employees, so they've been already kind of in communication about exactly how OpenGov wants to see this data scanned. Is that how you understand it, Irene? I mean, he did, so that will all be taken care of. Now going forward, I think it will be on me or someone, city staff to, when they apply for a building permit, I think OpenGov will just categorize it at that point, but there may be some work on the back end.
And with the scanning company, we did give them an overview of pretty much how we want the record set, kind of branched out, starting with, okay, this is really in the planning department, then building, then, by street name, etc. And then in addition to that, they don't want to question what they're scanning or have us come back to them. So they're guaranteed that everything in that file box, part of the paperwork, will be scanned. So that's why the cost is given to us this way, because that way we know that, even a little note in there is included and wasn't left out.
Okay. So are they using optical character recognition as part of the scanning? Because it's usually pretty good, but it's never perfect.
Yes, they are.
Okay. So that's going to help kind of create the metadata. Okay. That's cool. That makes sense. I think it's really necessary for us moving forward. Just even if we weren't in COVID. So,
like David said, now's the time that we're getting up and running with OpenGov. So it'll all just kind of seam together and it's going to be really great. 1 year from now, we're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah, I think it's a really good investment in the future. So, I'd love to see this come forward to the council. Gus, are you in agreement? Great. Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll move on to item B, Cherry Creek Affordable Housing Project Funding Request.
David, do you want me to do this, or I have it?
Yeah, Kevin, please proceed.
Okay. So, Madam Chair and Mr. Mayor, this is a request, and I think are they on the call, Irene? Colleen and Will from Kingdom.
Let's see, I do see Colleen.
Okay. Well, this is a request for us to consider some additional funding for the Cherry Creek Affordable Housing Project. Just to recap, what we've committed so far is the donation of the land, the 1.9 from unspent bond proceeds and affordable housing, the 250 for the 250,000 for the pre-development. David and I had a call with Kingdom and Colleen, and there's a number of factors that have come up that have kind of put them in this situation where they're seeking additional funding. And I'm going to let them explain that to you. There may be some other opportunities through the county, through the CDBG, which is coming up in a couple months, and we've kind of foregoed our CDBG funding through the county's new kind of method of holding up funding so cities can get funding every few years and get a larger amount. So we could be entitled to a decent amount of money through that program. If there's support for, looking further into this, we would request that we would hire Kaiser Marston, our financial analysis company that we used in the previous go round, to take a look at the updated pro forma and give us their input on the need for the money in the project and other alternatives. So David, I don't know if you have any more, but we could turn it over to Kingdom and Colleen at this point to explain what's going on.
Yeah, if I can, just to add to Kevin's comments. Thank you, Kevin. I think that was a good overview. The pro forma was shared with us, and that's included in the agenda packet. Due to various factors, they've indicated that there's a need for additional funding beyond the current funding that the council has approved. Should be noted that they did get approved for 9% tax credits through the Tax Credit Allocation Committee, or TCAC, and they also were approved for 21 vouchers, both of which enable the developers, Kingdom Development, to makes the project much more financially viable. Most recently, we received a request for I think it's between 1.2 and 1.4 million dollars, and the part of the request was we don't have at this particular point in time any additional dedicated housing money. Was for a general fund loan, and I, as the city manager, indicated that I was not supportive of loaning general fund revenue to affordable housing projects. I think we don't have enough reserves to afford that type of loan for this type of project. But ultimately, it is a council decision, and whether council would support that. And I think it does require additional analysis by way of the analysis of the pro forma to really validate the need. But I want the applicants to kind of speak to why they're asking for additional funding support for this project. That's it. That's the report, Madam Chair, Mayor.
Great. Unless there's anything else from staff, yeah, why don't we have the developers? Colleen, are you with us?
I am. I'm here, and I do believe the rest of our team is on the call as well. And I think it might be more appropriate for one of them to chime in here, possibly Will or one of the other team members.
Okay, I have a few phone numbers, so when I can't see their name,
Oh, I see a hand raised in there. I see a hand from a 951.
Yes.
Okay, so they should be able to unmute themselves. Is there?
Hi, it's William. Can you hear me?
Hi, Will.
Yes.
Hello, City Council and staff. Thank you so much for letting us explain this request to you. So there are some good things and bad things going on. The fabulous news is, as the city manager said, we received our award of 9% tax credits. The county provided project-based vouchers for the projects. We have applied for and are hopeful about receiving $400,000 of additional funding from the county. And the short way to look at it is we're 90% funded and ready to go, ready to start construction. The building permits plan check process is will shortly be underway. I think our team is going to be submitting those plans shortly. So we are moving forward and we are super excited about this project. The need for additional funding comes from a couple of macroeconomics issues. Number one, the federal government was kind enough to give California $1 billion of extra tax credits this year. And as a way of understanding, our state typically has $2 billion. This year we have $3 billion. And so it was a 50% increase in the amount of credits available. And a huge chunk of that was made available to Sonoma County and Butte County due to the disastrous fires in previous years. And so there is a significant amount of tax credits, which we just received. But unfortunately, they won't sell for the 97 cents that we all used to plan on them selling for. The extra supply has caused the demand, or not, the extra supply without an increase in demand has caused the price to go down into the 88 to 89 cent range. And we were extremely happy to get our tax credit investor tied up, and we have that signed proposal for them to buy it, but it is $600,000 to $800,000 less than what we had previously anticipated, and we are ecstatic to sign it up at that rate in this location. I think there was 12 other projects in Sonoma County that also received tax credits, so a huge benefit for the county, but really tough to get all of them started at once. And that leads me into my second issue is the construction budget that we planned for and Kaiser Marston reviewed at the beginning of our proposal and discussions with the city. We thought we were being quite conservative, and we took local numbers from other projects. We worked with our architect and other contractors in the area to come up with a budget, and we added a 20% inflation factor, and that was maybe a year and a half ago. At this point in time, with a lot of projects hitting the market at once, whether it's for market rate rebuilding or it's for the affordable housing industries putting 12 projects at once into Sonoma County, contractors are in high demand. And with that, construction costs came in, I want to say, $1 million or $1.5 million above our budget. And so those two issues alone, has caused a gap in the project. Now we've taken a few reserves out. We've decided to defer a chunk of the developer fee that CCOC and Kingdom would have shared, but we can't do it simply with those measures. And so our request to the city to provide future redevelopment dollars, inclusionary funds, generally would be a crazy ask to ask for general funds, but the point is the project is very close. We have lots of great news. The economics of the moment mean that we do have a shortfall. There's no more approvals to go through. It is just the city building permit process and this particular request for additional funding. And I believe the financial model we sent may have shown that we have approximately a $1.1 million shortfall. The $400,000 request of the county will go a long way to lessening that. And I'll stop there with reasoning for the change in the project's capital structure.
Okay. Just writing down my notes here.
Oh,
Mr.
also,
Mayor?
I'm sorry, maybe I should put in 2 extra points.
Okay,
Number one, if the city is able to provide additional funding, that funding would end up being in first position. The project at this stage, maintaining the service commitment to the clients and utilizing the vouchers and the relative small nature of the project doesn't have a permanent loan. And so these last monies to be loaned to the project would end up being in first position, and would have the ability to be repaid over, let's say, a 10 or 15 year time frame, depending on debt service and voucher amounts and stuff like that. And so you'd be in first position to get repaid as a lender.
but you said there were 2, that's the first one?
Maybe I mixed it up. Sorry.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this loan would put Cloverdale in first position as far as payback.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
It's a lien on the real estate, correct, William?
That is correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair- Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
Mr. Mayor, yeah, please start us off.
William, when will you hear from the county on the $400,000 request? What's that timetable look like?
I believe we'll hear back in the next month or 6 weeks.
The next month or so?
Mhm.
Okay. You know, this project is really starting to take a bite out of the cash. You know, we've already committed to 1.9. Now we're looking for roughly another 1.1. You know, we're up to $3 million, not including the cost of the land. That's a lot of money. Staff, what that 1.9 that we committed to, that had nothing to do with the sale of the Times Square property to Alexander Valley Medical. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, so we would have some money coming in once that sale is finalized as well.
Correct, Mayor.
Yes.
And I guess I want to caveat that if that sale occurs, there will be money in the Housing Successor Agency housing fund that could be used to fill that gap. I think the issue, and this might be a question for William, is a timing issue. We don't know right now when, well, if and when we will close on Times Square. So when would those funds be available? Versus when the project, the Cherry Creek project, requests the funds.
And I need to ask a follow-up to Gus, if you don't mind, because I need clarification. The previous dollars were, we were pitching into the project. This sounds like they're asking us for a loan this time around that would be paid back to our housing fund. Is that correct?
If that's where we gave them the money from, yes.
Yeah, but in this instance, for this particular request, if we're first in line for payback, that means that this is a loan.
Right. Yes.
Okay, I just need to clarify that.
Yeah. It would have to be a loan at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I can chime in with the answer to the timing of the funding, let's assume for the moment that the county says yes on the 400,000, and so we're asking the city for an extra 700,000, let's say, right, to help get to that 1.1 goal. That $700,000, we would need those approximately a year and a half to 2 years from now, as we're closing construction and converting to our permanent financing. We'd be using it to pay off the construction loan. So when we need the money is much delayed. When we need the commitment that there will be, that those monies will be a takeout financing, is for our closing here in late March, early April.
Okay.
That's our deadline to close for the state. So a commitment for the 700 in the next 3 months, the actual money 2 years from now.
Madam Chair, just to talk about your payment loan question, just unless this is structured differently, typically those loans don't start being paid back until several years with the residual receipts, and the pro forma would be able to identify when they would schedule that to happen, unless this was structured in a different way, but that's typically how that goes.
So
Do you
Kevin,
agree with that, William? Oh, sorry.
I would, and if I was being frank about it, if it was a $700,000 loan, it would probably take the project 20 years to repay that. That'd be my estimation.
so Mr. Mayor, if I may, because this is kind of goes back to your point.
Sure.
So it sounds like, okay, sorry, this is pretty complicated. But Kevin, you were saying earlier that we're likely entitled to some of that CDBG money, which if we get it, would we be able to get it in the timeline that would then help this project?
I think that's the 400 Will's talking about. Is that correct, Will, from the county?
The county didn't label it CDBG. I can't say exactly where they got it from. I don't remember the acronym of what they labeled it. It had an H and a P
Okay.
in it.
Well, then,
Kevin, it's the PLHA, I believe it
Okay.
is. It's separate from the CDBG, and the timing on the
Okay.
CDBG application is still yet to be determined, because when I checked the county website, it showed a timeline for last year. And last year, the NOFA for the CDBG funds was in the first week of December, but I don't see that that's changed. So, and
yeah, I
then
think last year the money was given out in March,
right.
which could be good timing. It's good to hear that it's not the CDBG, the 400 that you were thinking, because again, there's no guarantees, but I do think Cloverdale is in line to get some CDBG this coming cycle.
Well, with that CBDG money is usually only about 100,000 a year.
Right, but
We haven't taken it for a couple of years,
Right.
so.
So we could, so then we wouldn't get it for a few years, basically.
well, since we haven't gotten a CDBG in a few years, ours is kind of building up
Building
for
up.
lack of a better, and there's no guarantees, but that's kind of what the county's trying to do now, is have more of an impact on projects by giving out more money.
More money. Okay.
And we haven't had one in a few years, so we're in line, but again, I couldn't guarantee it, of course.
Okay.
And any idea when we're closing on the Alexander Valley Medical Facility? I mean, David, I know that's up in the air all the time, but if you had to pick a date out of the air.
I have a date certain for you. We're negotiations on finalizing the development agreement. It could happen fairly quickly, and then again, it could take some time. And there may be some negotiations with that developer on the ultimate purchase price.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking for, recommendations from this subcommittee, needless to say, the entire city council is going to have to weigh in on this one. And I really would like to see some new numbers crunched. What exactly is it costing us per unit? Now, all of a sudden, I understand it's a loan, but as a lender, you always have to be ready to cut your losses. I mean, if we get the real estate back, what are we going to do with it?
Well, at some point too, guys, I mean, and I don't mean to step on you, but I'm kind of, I think that you've hit on a really good point. We also, in front of the entire council, we'll need to know, it's like, where can we guarantee we're getting this money from? Is it going to be $700,000? It's coming out of our housing fund that is tied up for another 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really serious policy question. Because $700,000 for a housing project goes a long way. Or would it be from, built up, or would the lion's share come from built up CDBG funds, and the council determines that's a good use for those kinds of funds in this situation? So I think that we given direction to staff that we have a lot of questions. We want to be responsive to our partners and get them, so, you know, they're not left hanging, but at the same time, we have to protect this, you know, the community's investment in our affordable housing dollars. So I think it needs to come before the whole council, and we need to have all of these questions pretty well laid out and what our options are. Does
Well,
that sound good to you, Mr. Mayor? Or?
yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. And, you know, I really need to get my arms around how much we have invested in this project right now. Now, I realize a lot of the money is from restricted funds, the low to moderate income housing fund, but the CBDG grant money, if that's 400,000, whatever. I mean, we've got a lot of projects in town that we could use 400,000 to get done. And, you know, it just seems like we're putting an awful lot of money into this project. And this might only be the beginning. Who knows? You know, a year into it, there could be another knock on the door. So,
and I guess what I'd ask Kevin to direct the financial group to assess for us too is the value of that investment. And I'm really particularly in, you know, how much and the source of the loan will get tied up for how much time. Because it's not just how much this project costs. It also could make it so that we don't have other opportunities to invest those funds in other projects or in other uses. So I just kind of want to have a feel for that as well. But I also want to, you know, get back to these folks in a timely manner so that they know where they stand. I think that that's only fair. And I appreciate them, you know, coming, and because I don't think we go to a meeting where there isn't a new reality, you know, where we haven't been affected by COVID, we haven't been affected economically. I appreciate their candor and coming forward and saying, hey, this is really where we are. And this is what we need. And I really appreciate that. So, but I think that we really need, from a business standpoint and protecting our investment, we need to know where the you know, the potential sources of funding, and then how long, you know, money is going to be tied up, and what that could, you know, what it could cost us in the long run, you know, what we wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
If we're you know, pouring all the money into this particular pot. So I don't know, does that give you adequate direction?
It does. We'll engage with Kaiser Marston and ask for some additional information from Will, and then we'll have that for, I would assume, when we bring this to council in January, or I'll have to work with David on when that works. But we'll try to get as many answers as possible and work with Will and Colleen and lay it out for you so you can really make a good decision.
well,
And maybe we'll know more about the county at that point too.
well, you know, I mean, I really support the project, you know, but you reach a certain point when you really have to think about it again. I'm sorry I got knocked off the internet here a couple minutes ago. But the other thing for me that I'd really be interested in knowing is what would a liquidation look like? If we take the land back, I mean, what do we do with it? You know, so. Okay, that was all I had, Madam Chair.
Chair Bagby, this
Yes.
is Colleen.
Yeah, go ahead,
So
Colleen.
the immediate need also is if anyone has a chance to talk to someone at the county, we're going to be in the hot seat for that next, that PLHA funding request in the second week of December. I can send you the exact dates, but
Please.
any sort of help you could provide us in terms of getting the county to award us that 400,000 would be extremely helpful.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd support us writing a letter and just explaining our situation and what we'd like to have happen. I don't think that hurts. Send it to either. Does it go to the supervisors, Colleen, or who does that go to?
I would say the supervisor, and then also the members of the board, the CDBG, the CDC board.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd probably, Melanie, send it to the chair of the supervisors.
Okay. And it'll just go in their packet.
And then
Yeah.
copy all the rest of them.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be Linda coming up, but we need to make sure that Supervisor Gore is aware of this and that he can go to bat for us.
Yeah. So Colleen, if you get us that information ASAP, we can craft that letter.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you.
As one of your final acts as mayor this year, maybe we can get that out.
Thanks.
Sure. All right, unless there's anything else on this item, can we go ahead and move on to item C, amendment to the water wastewater rate study scope of work. Do we have Hildebrand with us?
Let's see if he's here.
You should be joining momentarily.
I'll introduce him while he joins us. So just as by way of background, we engaged Mark Hildebrand, Hildebrand Consulting, to do or prepare an update to our water and wastewater rate financial plan. It's really a 10-year plan. And as part of that effort, it included recommendation on proposed water rates and sewer rates. And we went through, the public review process, which included multiple public workshops or discussions before council, publishing a Prop 218 notice, and ultimately conducting a public hearing. Due to the significant number of protests that were received in regards to the proposed rates, that the recommendation, from me to council was to conduct additional outreach. I think there's really a need to hold some workshops to walk through the financial model, but in particular, provided more discussion and overview on the cost and timing of important capital improvement projects that are in our CIP that are specific to the water and wastewater enterprises. And really that was, those projects were what were driving in large part the relatively larger rate increases than we've experienced in the past. And I think there needs to be some workshops to really, go into detail and review of the proposed projects and the prioritization of those projects. Given that we really completed the entire scope of work that Mark Hildebrand provided to the city, it was necessary to, in order to continue this effort, to attain an amendment to a scope of work. And what's included in your packet is a copy of that amendment identified as amendment number 1 to the water and wastewater financial plan. And it provides really a roadmap and overview of what we would foresee would be a process going forward to bring the rate study, to do further public engagement and, with Mark's expertise, because I think, the model is what it is. I mean, he did a tremendous amount of work in coordination with our staff, our financial team, Susie and Shannon, but also with our city engineer to put all that data into the plan to develop the rates. But additional time is needed, and that's what's outlined in this proposed amendment. But I wanted to bring it forward to subcommittee first for your input and review, with the goal of bringing it to council probably at the very next meeting, because I think time is of the essence. And we want to, staff wants to obviously be able to get to work and work closely with Mark on this next step in getting prepared for the public engagement process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark. Mark has joined us. He's on the Zoom call. Mark, anything else you want to add?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, David. The amendments really, as David pointed out, to make sure that we engage the public a little bit more intimately this time around. We heard them loud and clear during the public process, which really is a testament to the process in itself and your community. And so we want to honor that by having some meetings with them and opening the books to show what sort of costs we're forecasting and the type of capital investments that are being considered. And, maybe try to find areas where we can defer some of the capital spending. All the projects that were identified are, of course, critical, but we need to make sure that the recommendations are in line with what the community has an interest in paying for. So I'm honored that you're going to continue this work with me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, did you have any questions?
No, I think it's pretty it explains itself here in the contract, and I'm glad to see that we'll be doing 2 public meetings. Much more than that, and actually going over the capital improvement projects that we truly need. And I think our city engineers simultaneously was going to look to see if any of those could be deferred at this particular time. But the reality of the situation is we have to move forward with something here. I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, I am too. I think it'll be a lot easier to engage the public when we don't have wildfires and smoke in addition to the pandemic. Maybe, just the pandemic is a high enough barrier to doing this kind of outreach. So, but just, I'd also like to see, as far as, the workshops and materials, I think that if the report is, it's pretty dense, but it's also, it has some really good graphics that are kind of 30,000 foot graphics. But I think that if we could have some, infographic style communication as well, that, really lays out and shows the trends of the absolutely mandatory expenses that are coming up. I think that would be very helpful too. Things that I'd love to see, things that if people can't come to the meeting, that we make either short recordings or presentations available on our YouTube channel, that we incorporate the infographics as well, and get those out on social media, out on YouTube, just so that we're making the information accessible. Because I think that your report, it really spells it out. It says this is the situation we're in and this is what has to happen. And the fact is that people have been underpaying for what the system actually costs when you incorporate the mandatory capital improvement projects. We have been underpaying for years. And so I think that if you can kind of tell that story in some infographics, a lot of the, I can really understand in this climate, I understand the level of objection, because the fact is that we did do all of the meetings. We did do all of the research. We did do, the Prop 218 letter. We did all the things, and the process was very transparent, but with everything else that was going on. Oh, and I forgot the election too. With the election as well, with everything that was going on, it just got missed by a lot of folks. So that was just a really good lesson that we get to learn from and try it again, because I know how essential moving forward with this is. We just need to tell the story better. So I'm looking forward to seeing materials and the effective outreach that we get to engage in.
And Madam Chair, if I can, one additional component that we want to make sure to follow for the next Prop 218 notice is to ensure that it's put into a bilingual format. Our city clerk Irene has already identified a qualified firm to assist with translation, because it's kind of a technical document. This firm has the necessary qualifications to put it in Spanish, and so there will be an additional cost for translating the notice into Spanish. But I want to acknowledge Irene in doing the legwork to identify a professional firm to help us with that that work. And in regards to your comment about an infographic, I think there's tremendous value in putting some of the, again, the technical verbiage that our consultant is so good at identifying in the report into an easily digestible format that we can reflect on social media and share with the community to kind of highlight some of the elements of that study. I think it's a great idea. If this committee supports beyond the cost proposal, maybe I'll add additional funding to work with a local graphic artist to help us with that effort. I'm thinking maybe, Ann McKenzie is a local graphic artist, and I know she's very well qualified, and get a proposal from her to help us with the infographic piece. If that's supported by the committee, I can bring that forward as part of this scope of work.
Yeah, I do know that there are, companies that, graphic design is one thing, but this is data interpretation and application. So let's make sure that whoever we choose has the technical acumen and expertise to pull out the really salient data and present it effectively. So let's just make sure whoever gets that's one of the criteria of the contract.
Okay, absolutely. And I'll chat with our consultant, Mark Elderman, and see if he has some thoughts and suggestions, and we'll update the scope accordingly. And again, our plan would be to bring this to council for the next meeting on December 9th, so we can begin this process of updating the financial plan accordingly.
Yeah, I know that this is a time-sensitive issue, so I know we need to move forward quickly. So that sounds good. Anything else, Mr. Mayor? Anything else, Mark? Or
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
great, thanks, Mark. Looking forward to it. Right, so it looks like we can move on to this is the thing I've been waiting for all day. Item D. All right, Chief, you're up.
I, as I always like to do, give the introduction and then turn it over to staff, turn it over to our chief. This item really comes about the council had approved a contract with an architect to design a new police station. We went through quite an effort, programming, developing conceptual drawings, all the way down to really pre-designed documents where we obtained a cost estimate where it by a professional cost estimator, and the police station for proposed development of a new police station came in around $17 million to meet current standards. And council has since identified interest in using the parcel, seeing development of the parcel for other uses. And the current facility does lacks a number of essential components that are needed, including storage. And so the chief and Lieutenant Parker worked on a proposal that they'd like to present to the subcommittee for evaluation of upgrading the current police station. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Chief Ferguson, and I think, Irene, if you can, if Lieutenant Parker's on the phone, if you want to bring him in as a panelist as well, and you have some comments on the memo in the packet.
So I just have one question, Chief. Have you called HGTV yet?
Say again? No, but that would be wonderful, right?
Takeover.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll take it from there. Thank you, Madam Chair, David. I appreciate that. And I'm not sure if Parker's still listening or not, but I certainly want to give him a lot of credit for drafting this executive summary. It was very detailed, very comprehensive, and he's fully aware of the facility and its deficiencies. So I'm really just going to capture a few things in that and not really go over the entire document, but absolutely want to address a few things. In the packet today, you've seen this executive summary created by Lieutenant Parker, which outlines a strategic plan to upgrade our current police facility. I think you're all well aware the police facility is outdated and has significant deficiencies which limit our ability to be more efficient. The demands on law enforcement in the current climate have significantly increased, but we continue to function within a building that lacks proper accommodation to support our operational needs. Our officers have outgrown the old sleeping quarters that were converted into offices with cubicles. And the community service officer continues to share a small space in the upstairs kitchen, which has been converted into an office, but still has kitchen appliances, some of which that do not operate. And this kitchen is also being used by the staff as common areas for breaks. The facility does not have, nor has it ever had, a legitimate interview room, which is a critical tool for officers and their ability to take extensive video and audio recorded interviews of victims and witnesses during investigations. This is really critical. Overall, I think we all know the building itself is becoming dilapidated and many improvements are needed to ensure suitability in the future. As David said, given the recent changes to the property originally proposed for the new location, combined with the growing cost of building a new facility, it's clear this is not a viable project the city can afford to complete or move forward at all on. And therefore, we're proposing a remodel of the existing facility to accommodate our needs. I don't intend, like I said, to go over this entire document. Hopefully you saw it, but I think it is necessary to discuss a few of the proposed changes. Chris did a really good job here of identifying 4 phases of the plan. And those phases really outline the floors, what's needed on floor 1, floor 2, and then the vehicle bay, which is also a critical component here, as well as the exterior. And a couple things I just want to go over here. One of the things, the needs I discussed, was the interview room, and one of our proposed changes here would be to remove that front office where currently our records tech supervisor Linda is in. She's far outgrown that. It's a very small space, but it's ideally suited for an interview room. What we'd be looking to do here is to seal that off, or create a door, if you will, into the public lobby that would allow access for both the officer and the individual that would need to be interviewed without having to go through the police department. So that would be critical, and we would ultimately move Linda into the big conference room downstairs, which would provide her a much larger space. One of the other changes that would be needed, and it's probably been needed for a while, is a reconfiguration of that front entry door into the public lobby. There's some ADA compliance issues that are going to need to be addressed on that. And so we'd certainly be looking to do that in the process of that level 1 situation. Floor 2, where the officers are, where all the management is. What we'd be looking to do there is really try to redo the officers area in there, remove that carpeting, maybe put some laminate flooring in there. They've absolutely outgrown that. If anybody recalls, there's a large wall barrier that separates that large room in there. We'd be looking to remove that wall, actually create 2 sergeants' offices in there, as well as 6 newly designed stations for the patrol room. This would provide a lot more room and would certainly be a nice welcomed upgrade for the officers. We would also be looking at this, once those are complete, is somewhat of an EOC type room in the event the firehouse wasn't available for us. This makes a valid second option. So some of these upgrades are kind of with that thought in mind. And we would just simply move our conference room into the former sergeant's office, which is next door to the lieutenant and myself. The vehicle bay, this is one of the crucial ones, and I think I've addressed this before. You know, what we'd be looking to do here is secure that 3rd bay that does not get used at all. Actually remove that big sliding door, secure it in, and put an exterior door, and create a structure inside the bay for a workout gym. so that the officers here have the ability to work out here, since nothing else seems to be working. But it's nice to be able to have it readily accessible here. And I think it's a viable option for us to utilize that bay. As I mentioned earlier, the demand on us here in law enforcement significantly increased. With that comes added stress, fatigue, and burnout. And we believe the benefits of investing in a facility like this here on the premises would be beneficial. And it's certainly well documented that being able to work out reduces stress, and it certainly it helps with workplace injuries as well. So that's really a big one there that we're really eyeing on, and we think it's very, very important for the staff here, considering everything that's taking place. And then lastly, one of the things that was brought up is like maybe redoing the face of the outside of the building, paints, new signage. We'd like to be able to have some kind of lit up signage so the public can see where the actual police department is. And then maybe do a little bit of decorative front landscaping type situation that might help beautify the location. There wasn't much thought put into this other than to say that Mark with Public Works was brought in and walked the facility with Chris, and his overall opinion was this would be better suited to have an architect take a look at it. And that's one of the things I'm bringing to the committee today is the thought of that and the opinion of the architect, and is that a viable option for us, and should we be looking into that? If you go into the end of the executive summary here, Lieutenant Parker has brought individuals in to give us estimates, both from the officer station remodel as well as the workout facility in the bay. I think the only thing that really didn't get looked into, because we're not sure where it's going or what that would look like, would be the exterior. But you can see the prices in there that have been quoted for the various projects. And these are, of course, rough estimates that they came in and, examine. We'd have to do a lot more work in regards to that, but it kind of gives us an idea of where we would be on these projects. And certainly we could take these in the phases that have been identified and not try to get it all done at one time, I suppose, but maybe look at phase one, starting with that. I know the exercise room is a big one on the list for people, and maybe look at that as a second phase. But anyway, the full report there, and I think there's diagrams that were included in there on how the overall project would look. I think we would stick to that, even if you brought an architect in. Our desire would be to kind of keep it similar to the design that is here, but certainly take it under their expertise recommendations. So that's my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Chief, is that exercise open to everyone? Just kidding.
We're going to leave that to an executive decision from the city manager. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, did you have anything?
Well, Chief, if I'm reading your numbers correctly on the last page, page 13, I think it is, or page 5, you're telling us that the total project is going to come in at about 137,000.
So I think, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's without excluding the exterior. Right.
Let me just, I don't believe that 137 was inclusive for the
well,
gym, the gym portion of that, the equipment.
Okay. Well, you and I have spoken about this before, right. And I told you, I would wholeheartedly support it. And as long as we kind of kept it under that 200, 250 mark, I think it's a great savings for the city not to have to spend 17. But again, of course, I'd like to take a look at the finals, and you guys will definitely call the shots on how you want it laid out. You're more up to speed than we are on that, but
right.
You got my support to go ahead and proceed, and let's try and do something with that building, because it's quite obvious we're going to be living in it for a while.
And I think that's the takeaway. That's kind of how we view it too. And I think we can probably get a lot more individuals on board with redesigning and getting some much needed upgrades here. I think we all fully aware that it's not going to be any time, at least that I'm here and most of the people are here, where we would see a new facility. So this would be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, my first choice is to get you into a new building. I mean, that's obviously, but if we don't have the tax base for it, we've kind of got to just come down to reality, say, what can we do? And actually, when you think about moving into that, those bays and utilizing it as a gym, I can really see the potential of this building if we were getting, but we have to commit and do it. But I really do think that it's important that an architect be brought in just to do the final drawings. I think that the layout that Chris is proposing it's fantastic, but you're always going to have an architect who's going to be able to tweak it and give you a better product. But I'm also interested in seeing a facade renew, because it's a landmark, whether we like it or not, it's a landmark building in our downtown. So I think that we need to be good downtown citizens and make sure that it is more attractive and for all of the neighbors and for our visitors, and then also do the absolutely essential improvements on the inside. That's the number one priority, is making it functional and it's just a great place to come to work. I mean, right now it's a sad building.
I'm fully aware.
As illustrated by your very sad beige curtains behind you. It's just a very sad.
So I was going to open up with apologizing for the darkness, but it was a great segue into the needing.
If anybody wants to know how crappy the interior of the police department, just look at the chief's office right now.
Right. Exactly.
Madam Chair, if I can, I'm
not done insulting the chief, but go ahead, David.
Get in line.
I was just going to say, senior staff has already put notice to chief on his window coverings, and we're all going to pitch in for some.
We're going to take up a collection.
Some new curtains.
I only ask that they're appropriate. That's all I ask.
We'll do a GoFundMe for new curtains. But the sad fact is that, those are single pane metal windows. They probably are they're freezing in the winter. And then it's west facing, as we can tell right now. It's west facing. So then you're roasting. So the whole thing is the whole building is just absolutely impractical.
So each of our offices, we've had to buy little heaters.
Little space heaters, yeah.
Yeah, because the heat just does not heat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, it just escapes. So
let's see. Yeah, let's see if we can. We also, have what hopefully will have some federal funds possibly become available after next year. So we might be able to well, we can, the city budget, we can kick in some of it. Hopefully we'll be able to find some federal estate matching funds for this, because this is absolutely essential. My other thought too is that if that second bay is left open, I'm seeing a climbing wall, Chief.
Well, let's not go overboard. That sounds like injury to me. So
yeah, but it's cheap. It's cheap fitness.
Right.
Well, from a financial standpoint, what do we have in the bond money that's left for the police station? Isn't that about 5 million? David?
Yeah. What do we have left, David? Or what do we have available?
Offhand?
So the funding for construction of a proposed new facility was going to be debt financing through USDA with some unspent bond proceeds. I think the current balance of our unspent bond proceeds is about approximately $1 million, give or take. I have to ask Susie for an exact number. And of course, we can bring that forward when we bring this to council. But there are some additional funds within the budget. I'm thinking most specifically the public safety impact fees, as well as the public facility impact fees. We have some of that we did commit to the recent purchase of a new police vehicle, but that funding is exactly for the purposes of a new police station. So I think that could fund the design work, And then we could look at once, this is the kind of work that will likely require public bidding. If we do it comprehensively as one project, what the final cost looks like, and then, bring that back to council with a recommendation on funding. But to your point, Madam Chair, is that, is developing plans, and it becomes a shovel-ready project. If there is, a stimulus program developed by the new administration, this I'm sure would fit in that any kind of criteria that might be made available, assuming that becomes the case. So we'd certainly, the timing might be just right to be able to get some, develop those plans and apply for stimulus funding if it's indeed proposed by the new administration.
Yeah, let's get a shovel ready project going. I'd say let's be ready for that. But also we have to look at this too, is that this is every project is an economic development project at this point. It's
Yep.
a stimulus project. So
I agree.
So I think that we prepare and be hopeful for stimulus dollars. And if not, I think that the community would agree that it's money well spent. It's investing in it's investing in the most important asset we have, and that's our staff and our police officers, and showing them how much we value them and providing a great place for them to, let's face it, they spend most of their time there. So I'm all for moving forward with the project. Kind of the other thought that I had too is that, Sonoma Clean Power took on a very similar project in the form of their new headquarters. I remember when they showed us in a closed session, the different old buildings in downtown Santa Rosa that they were considering. And it was like an HGTV project, like it was the before shot, like every building. And we actually ended up settling on a very Brady Bunch era title company building in downtown Santa Rosa that, kind of elicited groans initially, kind of like our police station does. And, it's under construction, and they'll probably be moving in, next spring or next summer. So I think it's really important to take on, for that reason, we're going to be in this building for a while. It's a landmark, whether we like it or not. It's in an important location. I think that design is and the look of it for where it is, it's very important. So I really would like to see, a good architect who knows what he or she is doing on the work on both the inside and the outside, because I think we're gonna be there a while.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, and it'll be an asset for downtown. So let's do it right.
So Madam Chair, I think for next steps, Chief Ferguson will work on obtaining a scope of work from a qualified architect, and we'll bring the proposed scope of work along with the proposed plan back to council.
Yeah, and the funding that's available and all of that good stuff.
Okay.
Or that might potentially be available. Yeah. Does that sound good, Chief?
Sounds great. Thank you.
I just want my climbing wall.
Well, you might be the only one using it.
Well, if I'm not allowed in, that kind of solves the problem. So
if you're accident prone, you're not getting access.
I'm not accident prone.
Oh, well, I don't know that.
Knock on wood. Great. Any other comments or questions? And if not, we'll move on to city servers, even more fun. And that's item E. Is that you, David?
Right. I'll take this item, and Chief may want to weigh in as he determines appropriate. So this item was reviewed by the subcommittee at your previous meeting in October, and the discussion revolved around the concept of evaluating, whether the purchase of the server would preclude us from operating, in a virtual environment, kind of moving to a cloud-based operating system. And with this committee's recommendation, staff went back and did our homework. Obviously it's a very technical issue, and there's no one best path forward. But what we determined in both consultation with IT professionals, as well as evaluating further the requirement of RIMS and the Sunridge system that RIMS is based on, is we do believe that there is still a need for upgrade of our physical server, and ultimately we want to move to a program where we have complete business continuity and resiliency, and I think that involves a cloud component. What I heard was that there's a tremendous benefit to having a hybrid system where you have both a physical server on site, as well as a cloud-based backup. And so where we think we're at on this is we still recommend pursuing upgrading our existing server. I think there's particular concerns that we're kind of, and I say this lightly, we're beyond the end of life of our 2008 server. We're really at this point about 3 upgrades behind, where it was 2012 version, 2016, and now it's the 2019 most current Windows Server version. We think that there's always going to be need to have some physical presence in terms of a server, especially for our file server, our DNS and DHCP needs that will always require some local presence, but that we will need to transition for resiliency purposes to having that cloud presence and cloud backup. So I think where we've landed, just because we feel time is of the essence, is coming back with this is I don't think this will, if this subcommittee supports us moving forward with the upgrade now, preclude the opportunity for us to transition to virtual and cloud based service as part of a hybrid model. I think what we will likely need to do is I guess the recommended course of action is to continue with KLH for this upgrade city server, and KLH being our current service provider, to make this needed upgrade, particularly to support the RIMS system, which requires a newer, their recommendation on their website is at a minimum use 2016, but really probably the 2019 server. So we're looking at it, kind of a major jump in terms of our upgrade, but then go out through an RFP process to retain proposals for IT services that capture, all the things that I think, we need in terms of, IT services, and, that's an opportunity to engage the council and kind of what's their perspective, and what are their support needs for IT. Because we, as we transition now more to being more of a virtual city hall, we think that need is going to grow, and we may need a higher service level from our IT service provider. So we're kind of asking your support for this 2-pronged approach. One, to purchase go ahead and move forward with the purchase of the server, because we feel so critical to public safety, the police department, with the direction to also proceed, get that done, and then proceed with the kind of a development of an RFP that would seek our IT services for the city.
David, if I may add something.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously I echo everything David said. He's exactly right. And further, I want to add, the police department is, I think, the single most critical piece of infrastructure in times of disaster. And one of the things that I found most interesting in Sunridge Systems' response was the consideration that in Northern California, in the instance of a major disaster, which we're always going to be subject to under whatever capacity it is, if we rely solely on that cloud and there's a cut in that connection, or it's physically severed, we are out. We are high and dry. There's really no option for us in that, and that speaks volumes when we're relying heavily on our infrastructure in those times of emergency. And furthermore, Sunridge is very much indicating that CAD and RIMS requires an an on-premises server. So that's two crucial things I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah, Chief, I think that's why I like the two-prong approach. I think that's really important. I think taking a step back and really understanding where we're at and where we need to be, and what can go cloud and what needs to stay on site. It sounds like everybody has a much better grasp of that. Gus, did you have any questions or comments?
Well, just a couple. Now, David, when you talk about upgrading the current server, you're talking about upgrading it to 2019 standards. So we're going to be doing 3 upgrades, I take it.
It's just one upgrade.
Okay, but it's to 2019.
It's a 2019 version. So, the current, we have an outdated server model, and there's been several updates since then. So we'll be kind of jumping multiple upgrades.
Okay.
To the most current, 2019 Windows Server version.
Sounds good. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, I know I just had one kind of extraneous comment on this, but it's related into what I would like to see when you do bring this back. You alluded to it a moment ago, David, is that I think we're probably in this situation for a long haul. And, it's not my place or role or expertise to prognosticate about, viruses and distribution and delivery and, when everybody's going to be back to work together. But what I do know is that it's going to be a long time, longer than we think it is. And so I'm concerned that, and I want to make sure that, senior staff and, and actually all staff who can have the, when we're looking at, doing the upgrade and the, whether, upgrading the server, whether we're going, it's on site or it's virtual, we need to also make sure that part of that equation when we're sending out an RFP for, IT support, that to make sure that our senior staff have the hardware that they need to also do the work to VPN and securely. I know everybody's got an iPad, and iPads are great, and I use mine all the time, but it doesn't do everything that either a desktop or a laptop computer does. So, I think that needs to be part of the assessment going forward as well. Just, getting the server upgrade and figuring all that out. That's just the back end of the equation. The front end is making sure that our essential workers, our employees, have the tools that they need to do the job as well. So I think that we're going to probably need to, it's my sense that we'll need to revisit that sooner rather than later. And maybe there will even be some magic federal money for something like that. Or we're just going to have to, find it in the budget, because if folks can't safely and securely VPN in, then that doesn't work either. So let's not be penny wise and pound foolish on that front. So I think that needs to be part of the discussion when you bring this back.
Absolutely. Our plan for this item would be bring forward the upgrade of the city, the authorization to purchase the upgrades, with direction to staff to begin preparation of the RFP, which is a kind of a mid to long term process, whereas the server purchases were
Right.
more immediate.
Right. No, that sounds good. That sound good to you, Gus?
Yes, that sounds fine.
So which meeting will you be bringing this back to? Or is it, you're going to bring it back here or bring it to the entire council when you're ready?
I think we'll just bring the purchase of the server forward to council just for
Okay.
budget authorization. And then the RFP, ultimately would come back.
Come back here. Okay.
For a recommendation when it's ready, and then ultimately approval by council.
Oh, that sounds great. Right. Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move on to item F and Sonoma County Action Recovery Plan from the EDB. The EDB keeps following me wherever I go.
All right.
It was wonderful reading, by the way.
It's definitely it's a long report, but I think it's an important report. I wanted to elevate it to current items under discussion rather than as a standing item. One, because since the last meeting, the Economic Development Board released the document, and it contains a number of important strategies related to the county and our response to COVID. The plan, just to provide this committee an overview, is taking what's referred to as a whole community approach, and focuses on business recovery, workforce recovery, and community recovery. And under each one of those, there are a set of strategies, 13 in total, including with each of those strategies a number of specific action steps. And I think in various ways, the city, through our own planning processes, are working on some of those strategies. For example, this subcommittee and as well as the Joint City School Subcommittee has been talking about how do we expand broadband infrastructure to support internet access. We know that that's a critical issue as part of community recovery, and that's something that we'll continue to work on. But other elements or things that, depending on the priority of this subcommittee and council, council may want to take a look at these strategies and determine, if you'd like to allocate staff to begin, implementation or consideration of some of the strategies that are proposed. For instance, one of the strategies under business recovery is to provide innovative regulations and temporary laws, otherwise called urgency ordinances, to help keep businesses operational. One that's related to this is the California Department of Public Health has released guidance for tents and canopies, which are necessary to help them with business operations during the winter months, and while addressing the health impacts of COVID. We as staff have understood the importance of trying to work with our business community to find solutions to their space needs to continue them being able to maintain business. So really just wanted to kind of elevate this and by bringing it up on the current items for discussion, just so that it was kind of front of mind for this subcommittee, and recognition that we are in various ways tackling some of these and are actively implementing some of these key strategies. But also, if there were certain things that this subcommittee recommended that we pursue, to certainly we can tackle those as individual items. So that's just a brief overview. There's quite a bit in the report. We're happy to bring it forward to council if you think that's beneficial. Otherwise, we'll probably bring it as a kind of keep it as a standing item under the current state of the COVID-19 pandemic, since it's really directly related to that the issue that we're all working on currently.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions and comments. Mr. Mayor, did you have anything?
Well, I just wanted to echo what David had said in the sense that some of these we're already working on. Community Recovery 9.3 on page 6. That's something we're doing under the Resilient Cloverdale. So there's a lot of this we're already doing. A lot of them are long-term initiatives. We're not going to get it accomplished in a couple hours pushing some papers around. I mean, for example, work with banks, credit unions, community development, financial institutions, nonprofit organizations to increase access to capital for small businesses. I mean, that you don't do that with one phone call, So, I'm not, I'm fine if you want to bring it to the full city council, but I'm not so sure that it's ready for prime time yet. So that was it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Well, kind of on that note though, Gus, I think that, so many of these there are a lot of small bites, but there are a lot of big bites. There's, stuff that we're already working on, stuff that, where maybe it's on the horizon for us. And I think another way to spin it for the council, for lack of a better term, is that I think a lot of these issues should be part of our legislative platform. Things that we're advocating for at the county level, things that we're advocating for with our state representatives, that we're advocating for in Sacramento. So I think that, I know I could come up with a list pretty quickly, some of the housing issues, the investment issues, the business support, those sorts of things. I'd love for the senior center and the chamber to, I'd love to do a workshop about this. Let's put our money where our mouth is, get some of the, maybe actually take this to Resilient Cloverdale and say, look, folks, how do you think we can go about implementing this? And because there's really good data in here about, here's a good direction. They did, the EDB is kind of known for this. They kind of, they just sort of operate over there in the background, but their data collection and direction that they can give you if you choose to implement it, it's pretty profound. I think it really, it shows a way forward from, we're dealing with everyday crises and what are we going to do today? What are we going to do this week? But we also need to be looking down the road, as one of the quotes was talking about, the nationwide recovery isn't going to really, we're not going to really see anything until 2022. It's advisable for the county and for municipalities to start planning for housing with that kind of, horizon in mind. So we can start incorporating that into our planning today. So I don't want to go, I'm not going to go through point by point, but I think that that's kind of how we have to look at this document, from an academic stance is how can we use it to create a roadmap to help Cloverdale recover our businesses, our residents, address our housing needs, and get ready for what we hope are going to be some of those stimulus dollars that are coming down, that hopefully will be coming in a year or two. So, particularly where broadband is concerned, one of the places that where we've really missed the boat is advocating for smart, not just for the train, but for the broadband that brings. It brings real fiber broadband, 1,000 megabits per second, down and up. That is our #1 way to get high quality, high speed, dependable internet. It's not just part of our economic development plan, as the chief pointed out earlier. It's part of our disaster preparedness and resiliency planning, is making sure that backbone gets to Cloverdale. And when it does, when it gets to Cloverdale, that means it gets to the entire northern Sonoma County. It gets to Geyserville, it gets to Healdsburg. So it's already going to be in Windsor, as of next year. That's what we need to be advocating for, and not letting anything stand in our way to make sure that we get that fiber backbone all the way to Cloverdale, because it's essential for everything else that we plan to do. So, we need to start advocating for ourselves to make sure we get smart to Cloverdale. For it, if you don't believe in the train, fine. You don't want to believe in reality, fine. That's fine. I can live with that. But you got to believe in the economic importance and the impact of high-speed internet, and it's right here in this report. So that's what we need to get the community, you know, hyper-focused on and insistent on, and start being our own best advocates, because that is our number one easy way of making sure that we guarantee our economic viability for the future. In addition to that, the housing component, the housing projections were alarming in this report. So let's do ourselves a favor and make sure that we are doing everything that we can, because if we lose our, you know, also in the plan is the importance of diversifying our economy away from tourism, and not saying we're not going to have tourism, but creating a balance with agriculture, with cannabis. Fortunately, Cloverdale has done a great job of positioning ourselves for cannabis businesses. Who would have known? You know, but it's a growing industry, and we're going to get the report later on is how much it's actually growing, which is kind of crazy numbers to me. But if we're going to, I think that we can't just take a look at this report as a, you know, oh, what a great report. I think it contains a really viable roadmap for us moving forward. So if we're going to make sure our future is in creative arts, agriculture, cannabis, I don't remember the other one. Outdoorism, except for when there's, you know, we're in a day with smoke, you know, more outdoor. We need to be doing things, making sure that we are on board with Mike McGuire's Redwood Trail plan. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support Sonoma County parks, and making sure that they're part, and then making sure that, because we are, you know, Northern Sonoma County is parks poor, making sure that we get McGuire to do a parks plan with us, so that we can, you know, latch on to these really good ideas and move forward. And the way that this, for me, that the way that this comes back to housing is that if we lose our low wage workers and they all leave because they don't have jobs and they can't afford to live here, if we don't open up, you know, our zoning to more multifamily housing opportunities, you can say goodbye to those jobs, you can say goodbye to those businesses, those industries, because they won't be able to keep employees here in Sonoma County. So, you know, I think that we need to really look at the key aspects that we can implement in our local city policy, and then also put on our platform things that are too big for us to do alone. So that when we're out there on boards, you know, when we're out there talking to our supervisors or our legislators, we're laser focused on what it is that we need to advocate for this community to succeed. So that's kind of, you know, that's kind of a big thing to digest, but that's what I'd like staff to bring back to the council. And we need to warn the council that they need to read through this and be familiar with it, so that we can give direction on the things that particularly resonate with us that we can take action on. Does that give you some direction?
Madam Chair, I think you provided a great overview of how the plan connects to a lot of our work programs, but also some of the larger goals that council has. And, you know, for us, there's a lot in there. So like you said, there's, you know, really kind of a need for council to identify, you know, what your priorities are, and where do you want us to, as you indicated, you know, kind of focus on our, in terms of our staff time and resources to pursue. And, you know, I think broadband is you know, seems to rise up there as a you know, one of the key goals that we should pursue. And I know there's a lot of interest in that.
And there's great potential to work with the school district on that.
Absolutely. And
have them advocate with us.
I'm just thinking out loud here. You know, there's been a discussion at this subcommittee about the need for, you know, a council workshop, and I think, you know, this is one of those items that we can start planning. What I think will probably is going to need to be at least a half day, if not a full day workshop, you know, to talk about, you know, this, report and some of the strategies and what we want to prioritize, but also because we're going to be starting, development of goal setting and budget development for next year. And then this committee also recommended the workshop to discuss the recent report that was prepared by management partners on city finances. So I guess where I'm going with this as a recommendation is that we as staff start developing an agenda for a workshop with council, and this would be one of those items that we put on the agenda.
Yeah, I don't see how we can, retain the same goals. But also, a lot of this, it would just kind of inform and tweak so many of the goals and the objectives that we already have, the priorities that we already have. But it can laser focus them into a direction so that we're making decisions every day that are consistent with the direction that the council has set as a group, but also so that we can be advocating for this wherever we are, wherever we see Gore, wherever we see any of the supervisors, we know exactly what our priorities are and what we need from them. So yeah, I think that we definitely need to do a, if not a half day, a full day. Just kind of, reassessing and making sure our direction, we're on the same page with each other. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, anything else, Mr. Mayor?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, well, wonderful. Right, well then.
I think you and David summed it up nicely, so.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, let's see.
I'm just not sure about a half-day workshop, though. I think we need one longer than that.
I do too. I mean, half day is kind of wishful thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, as much as I think it's going to turn into a day long anyway. More than likely. So, and better to give people like Jason a heads up of a real number, so he can take the day off. So anyway, so I guess we'll just move on to standing items unless there's anything else on the recovery plan. Let's see. Do we want to go over anything standing out that anybody needs to? I guess I know we need to hear from on Measure Peaks. That's in our packet. Is that right, Susie?
It is in the packet. I'm trying to pull it up really quick.
And I guess
well, yeah, I'm just is anybody have anything that they need to present on A through D? New information.
Chair, I just wanted to mention that we do have Becky, Enos, and Amanda for our possibly regarding item B.
Becky's got her hand raised, so we'll go ahead and Becky, why don't you go ahead? Oh, she took her hand down.
Yes, she's moving over to the panelist, so she'll have speaking capability.
I have to move over from the peanut gallery to the real meeting. Good afternoon. Thank you, council folks, and just happy to be back. I have just a very short update, and I'm sorry I didn't provide any materials, even though I have them because they all came after the due date for the packet. But I would be happy to send them forward to David to disseminate. So from our last meeting, just moving forward with the building self-healing communities, and Councilmember Bagby kind of queued up the discussion because it does really pertain to what you were just talking about earlier with the reports and some of these issues and how it might take a half day or a whole day or beyond, really, because community engagement is dirty work. But in terms of just trying to tie together what I heard earlier this afternoon with the Resilient Cloverdale group, and then what you're discussing, and then the self-healing communities model, was very excited to have an opportunity to have kind of a dual conversation with an expert in the field at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which you may be familiar with as a national foundation promoting health equity. And early conversations look good in that I think his title is called community coach or health coach, not exactly sure, but Mr. Hinton is willing to work with our group and with Cloverdale specifically in Sonoma County in general through Health Action to kind of address some of these inequities that have clearly popped up, around the state, around the nation, but specifically in Sonoma County due to COVID and whatnot. And really try to develop a resiliency plan in terms of how to, not just get back on your feet, but then how to prevent. And in our case here with our self-healing communities model, we're discussing prevention of transmission of ACEs, which again, for folks is adverse childhood experiences. And really around my passion around policy making and law and how we use data to move into action and to create policy that is equitable, but not only develop policy that is equitable, but also look at the enforcement side as well, and how some of our practices and procedures in terms of enforcing policy, who enforces policy, who's the target audience when we are talking about policy, all of those questions. So Joe Hinton is willing to work with us. We had an initial conversation just last Tuesday before Thanksgiving. He sent some materials and some different action planning guides that I'd like to share with subcommittee. And then also a grant opportunity for the community of Cloverdale that would take a little bit more work than just Health Action. We'd kind of need a few other folks to buy in on it and potentially sit in on that. But it is a ACEs awareness grant that a California state is putting out there. I believe Cloverdale is in somewhat of the planning process. They provide two options. It's an implementation grant and then also a planning grant. And since this is around ACEs work, in my initial reading of the RFP, it seems as if we are in the conversation stage, the discussion stage, the planning stages. And so in that case, communities are eligible for up to $300,000 to develop that plan. And then once the plan is developed and hopefully then accepted, you could move into the second stage when you actually want to implement. And that could be anywhere up to $3 million. So it's a wonderful opportunity that I think, self-healing communities model, preventing transmission of ACEs, resilient Cloverdale, some of this other data that you were just discussing, it all kind of folds in together. And my hope is to help try to align the work and be a resource for that. So I just wanted to provide the committee that update.
Oh, thanks, Becky. So can you make sure that those materials get forwarded to us so that we can and work with David to get our workday organized, our workshop organized. That sounds like a great resource for us to apply to some of those grants. And I would just urge you too, if you haven't taken a look at the EDB report, I'm sure that BJ Beschloff. You know BJ?
I haven't personally met, but I mean, yes, that's out.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she was one of the facilitators involved in the report, and the whole community approach is referenced throughout the report. So I would really urge you to get onto the EDB website and pull that report down and just be familiar with it, because I think that if you get to participate in that workshop, it would be great to have your perspective. And if you were familiar with that document, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look at it. I have not heard of it before. I would love to kind of compare that to the county health rankings and roadmaps that our WJF put out, and see where their numbers are in comparison. It might not be the same indicators, but it certainly would be worth looking at.
Yeah, it might just be easier too. You can go to the EDB website and pull down the report, or it's in our packet for this meeting today.
Okay.
Like kind of smack in the middle.
Sure, no problem. And may I also just suggest off topic that Actually, Chief Ferguson, I would think Bobby Burke from the Fab Five on Queer Eye might be a great architect for the police department in the future. So,
Oh God, I would love to see the Fab Five take on the Cloverdale
yeah,
Police Department.
that is going to be my vote.
Good tip, thanks.
I would be beside myself if that happened.
Would that not just be the coolest? I'm sorry.
It would
I think
be
that's
that.
great.
I'm sorry, we're digressing. Sorry.
That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, anything else on this item? Great. So can we, let's see, where, I know we're kind of scattershotting this item, the standing items thing.
Well, I think item H can be removed permanently.
Yep. Oh,
Let's get that off there.
and we can't even go and celebrate with a beer, Gus. Or we guess we could.
We could at the pub. So
I think we deserve a celebratory drink. I'm just.
we were lucky.
Yeah, that was very, yeah. Thank you, Gus. That's, and
Yeah.
thank you staff for all of your work on that. That was a nice save. Well done.
And
All right.
Madam Chair, if I can, I just want to real quickly jump back to item 6A. This is community outreach efforts for My Brother's Keeper.
Great.
Wanted to mention, Chief has completed what I think is a really great presentation and overview. We've been challenged because it's been, emergency event after emergency event since.
I don't remember when it started at this point.
And I guess we seek your input and the mayor's input. I know, Gus, you want to be part of that presentation, or at least, lead up or be part of the presentation team with the chief. But wanted to get your feedback on when we might, and I say we, and really mean the chief, present his presentation to the community, because I think it provides a lot of valuable information. It kind of closes the loop on the pledge that this council adopted. I was hoping we were going to be able to get before council, in its current form, but we're running up to the kind of the end of the year here. But one of my thoughts was maybe a future coffee with the mayor. That might be an opportunity, as chief can be the guest and do a presentation through that format. Assuming mayor and Madam Chair, you're okay with that, and along with the chief.
Sure.
That sounds
David,
good,
I'm fine with that. Whenever the chief is ready to go. The only problem with mayors with the coffee, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it with them, the participation is very slim. We don't have a lot of folks being there. We should almost do it before a workshop on increasing the water rates. And then we would have at least, 50 or 60 people there.
A captive audience.
Yes.
Well, I think I'd like to see you go ahead and do it with Coffee with the Mayor, and make sure that we get it recorded and we put it on our YouTube channel and put it out on social media.
That would also be good. Yeah.
And website, so that it's just like, this is the state of the state on the state. And anybody can go back and watch it at any time if they have any questions about the process that we went through.
And I'm just going to add very quickly, that's an excellent idea, but we've also created our own video aside from this that has members of our organization speaking to parts of our use of force.
Oh, that's great.
It's fantastic. And it's,
I can't wait.
How do we get to see that?
we were completing it, and I wanted to do this prior to that going out, so it kind of allows it then to now be published however we wish, but always available to review. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll coordinate with, it's going to be dependent on who's the mayor.
Well, and I think let's just make sure that Zoe is there so that she can do a piece about it and help us publicize it.
Okay.
Even if the attendance is a little bit slim, at least it'll have some interaction, hopefully, with the audience, and then Zoe can help us get that out.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, I don't, all the other items are kind of, standing as you want updates. I think we also kind of discussed that, we're addressing the local preference policy, so we might be able to, remove that off of the agenda.
Okay.
If you're okay with that. On item G, I did want to point to there in your packet is a presentation. It's fairly technical. But it was a presentation that was provided by CalPERS in July about their fiscal year returns, cost impacts, and path forward. It's got a lot of details. I would recommend just taking a look at it, and we can put it back on or keep it on the agenda if you want to keep it. I mean, this item will stay on the topic will stay on the agenda, but if you want us to keep the presentation on there for future reference, because I think it really does provide an overview of PERS and how they look at managing their assets going forward.
All right, what do you think, Gus?
Well, I think as long as we have it as a standing item to be continued, we should keep it up there at least for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly, but and I think it's important that it's also part of the budget discussion in the next cycle, and how this really does impact our budgets going, year to year.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't hurt to have a little review on that, a little refresher for those of us who do not do this kind of finance number crunching for a living.
Yeah, every day.
I always need a little refresher. Yeah, that's right, every day, Gus. Okay, well then, yeah, I'm just kind of taking a scattershot approach just for anything that kind of pops out. But did Susie, did you want to give us an update on Measure P? Or did you not want to give us an update on Measure P funds?
No, I don't mind. So a quick update is that you will see in October a large deposit amount that was one of the businesses that is trying to get caught up. They're still past due. But we're working on them. So you can see that we know they're past due by $79,000. But they made $100,000 payment last month. So we're hoping that will be caught up.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. An interesting note is that if you include the prior year total of the gross revenues was over $12 million. And this year, this fiscal year, over almost 4 million. So just a little bit of tidbit. November, the payment wasn't actually due until yesterday. So this doesn't have the most recent information, but it's as of October 31st is what we mostly have, unless they made payments either early or make-up payments. That's what the November payments are. And that's all I really have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything, Mr.
I'm
Mayor?
good. I'm fine.
Yeah, I like to see that we're in line with the county's growth sectors. Little Cloverdale. We're ahead of Sonoma and Healdsburg, so that's a pretty good place to be. Yeah, that's all I have on that.
Just to add, while we're talking about cannabis, our community development director, assistant city manager, has been coordinating with the other permitted dispensary. They have some final building permit items that they are finalizing, as well as their security plan through police department. And so they're in process, and they continue to make substantial progress. And I would anticipate, we don't have a date certain, but you know, we're in this kind of 3 to, you know, maybe at the long end, 6 months out before they open. I'm expecting it might be more on the shorter end of the time frame that they might be ready to open a new dispensary in Cloverdale. So that would be an additional cannabis business that to this date hasn't contributed any excise taxes to the city.
Great, thanks for the update. Do you have any questions about that, Gus, or?
Not at all. Thank you.
Okay. Does that pretty much cover all of our standing items?
Well, I'd like to see about adding 1 or 2 to the standing items. You know, Measure DD passed. I don't have to tell you that. And at our last meeting, I was interested in finding out, is it possible to bond against that portion of the money that we're going to be getting from DD so that we could do a bigger project rather than having to wait 5 or 6 years to accumulate $500,000. Without too much staff time, I wonder if it's possible we can make a quick phone call on that. And then secondly, we were looking for an update at every meeting on OpenGov, where we are with the project. And so I'd like to see that on the next standing item, just for a report out. That was
Great
all I
call.
had.
Yeah. I guess, and I just have an item, and it doesn't need to go on standing items, but I did make the mistake of going onto Facebook yesterday, and there was some buzz and concern about the water bill. I guess it was, and honestly, I have not researched this at all, Susie, so I apologize. Just concerned about like the closing date was really close to the due date. Like the closing date was, you know, November 30th and it's due on December 1st or something like that. I just, you know, and of course, you know, then there was the usual, oh, well, it's probably the city trying to cheat us, you know, and make up, you know, and I explained, I said, well, actually that's illegal.
Yeah.
Prohibited by state law. And if you have an issue about this, I invite you to come to the Police, Finance, and Administration Subcommittee meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I don't see anybody here. So
Yeah.
that's so weird.
There has been confusion around that because what it used to have the due date as the last day before you get a penalty, but actually the bill is due when you receive it. It's due on the 1st. It's not past due now for 45 days. So before it was the 18th. Yeah, we had a strange thing going on there, but we did correct that. It is due when you receive it. It's due on the 1st, but it's not past due for 45 days, and there is no penalty. And that is listed on the back of the bill. So if they read the bill, but before
I didn't even bother to do that. So yeah. So if we can, you know, I said, hey, call the number on the bill, or come to a meeting, or call City Hall, or instead of bouncing, you know, in the back and forth in the social media echo chamber. Yeah. And strangely, they didn't come to the meeting. There we are. So, but if you hear anything about that, that's kind of, there was a little bit of buzz about that. So maybe it has died, but just in case, but if it does become an issue and we need to address it, just, put it on next month's agenda.
Okay.
Because it's an administrative thing. So anyway, so I'll try to keep my tilting at social media windmills to a minimum in the next couple of weeks. So all right. Well, I guess that's future agenda items. Unless, is there anything else, Gus?
No, nothing.
No. Okay. I think our dance card's pretty full. Pending items, which I still don't know what that means. Anything good of the order? Any announcements?
No.
Madam Chair, I don't have any specific announcements, but our team may have
Yeah.
something.
Anything from the team?
We're
Well,
almost-
oh, go ahead, Susie.
I was just gonna say we're almost finalized with audit, so that will be one thing that's off our off of our to-do
Don't
list.
drop off. Yeah.
Yeah, with our new auditors, they've been amazing to work with.
Oh, that's great.
We've done everything virtually, so it's just been great. Yeah, and we have started, just since I think we can talk about this really quick, OpenGov, we've started the process of updating the chart of accounts is all updated. We started working on the workforce program, which is payroll portion of it. And then also simultaneously with the licenses and permits, we started with business license. So we're going to try to get that up and going first, and that'll be a good gauge of how it's going to work and how it can go through all of the different departments. So, yep.
Great. So are we going to implement the little idea that I got from the league to put a link or a referral to the chamber when somebody applies for their business license?
Yes, I requested today that we add that, because right now we currently have one form when we send out the business license that says, do you want to be on the city's website as a business located in the city?
Yeah.
And then I asked if we could just add another one, a little toggle, yes or no. Do you want your information sent to the chamber so that you can become a member of the chamber?
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Now hopefully that'll just, direct people to just get that done while they're establishing their business. So that's cool. Great.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we were going to get a grandchild report, but that was still good.
Oh, well, she turned a year old, so that's super exciting.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Started
some good news.
walking. Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe
Yeah.
that. It seems like just yesterday.
I know.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Well, on that happy note, we'll adjourn until Tuesday, January 5th, and go out and enjoy the last little bit of sunshine, everybody, since you've been in your cave in a meeting since 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
All right, have a
sorry.
good afternoon, everybody.
We have another meeting after this, but that's okay.
No, say it ain't so. Well, I'm out of here. I'll see you later.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks,
All right.
staff.
Thanks, guys. See you later.